So once again, I'd like to give a big thank you to Jen and Justin Hammaker for a wonderful meal. Give them a big round of applause. Please help yourself. There's tons of food up there if you didn't get a chance to get anything. So kind of the plan is I'm going to kind of go through a presentation we put together for the next 10 minutes or so, just kind of explaining the levy and what the purposes are going to be for it. And then we'll just kind of open it up for questions. And yeah, go from there. So here's our first slide here. So what is a supplemental levy? Okay, so what we're asking for is a supplemental levy. So this is supporting ongoing operating expenses that state funding doesn't fully cover. And we'll get into some of that here in a minute. So most durations for this are about 2 years. And it provides funding for school districts to provide, most of the time it's for salaries, extracurriculars, the things that are hard for school districts to fund on their own off of state funds. And it requires a simple majority to pass. So why do we need a levy here at Council School District? So by our current budget, our current proposed budget, which does actually bring down some of our expenditures, we figure we are pretty close to $400,000 in the hole right now. So that would be with our ongoing expenses as they stand today with the cancellation of the current levy of $130,000. So that would put us in a pretty good deficit right now. Why we have this increased cost? Okay, why we're so far in the deficit? So one of the big ones is in the last couple of years we've moved pretty heavily to full-time aides with the idea that they'll create longevity. They'll be more consistent. We're not constantly having to find new aides every school year. We'll have some longevity and consistency across the years, which has actually been true. We've had, especially over here in the elementary, we have some fairly long-term aides here. So going to full-time versus part-time is extremely expensive. When we go over 20 hours in the school district, we have to offer all the benefits. So that's Percy, insurance, all that stuff. So that the actual expense of that aid is somewhere about like 25% more expensive than part-time. Last year we passed a classified salary schedule for our classified staff. So classified versus certified. Certified staff are our teachers, the people who have certifications. Classifieds are all the other people that make this place run. You know, the bus drivers, the cooks, the aides, the janitors, the people that do the real work in a school district. So we passed a classified salary schedule trying to be competitive with our rates compared to other employers in our community. So that brought our expenses up pretty significantly as well. One of our district, like most districts in Idaho, is seeing increased needs in special education. So right now we're seeing more kids in special education and more kids with higher needs. And those become at pretty extreme costs. We have several one-to-one aides. Like all they do all day is work with one particular student. That comes at a major cost to a school district, and we don't get any additional funds for that. And with special ed, we're also seeing increased need for specialized services. This is going to be things like occupational therapists, speech and language pathologists, school psych. These are added expenses, again, that we're seeing increasing right now. And then kind of the other part of this that we're kind of looking at with this levy is extracurricular, which includes activities, but also sports. Those things are getting more and more expensive as well. So just like everything else, we're seeing increased expenses in that world as well. So the biggest example of that is the football helmets. We've been talking about that a lot in our board meetings. We're generally buying about 10 helmets a year, which at pretty significant cost. That comes at about a $5,000 to $6,000 cost to the school district to continue that. So we're seeing increased costs in some of the things that we're doing. So why are we proposing $250,000 a year when we're, I just showed you that our needs might be a little bit higher. So we talked quite a lot about this figure when we were trying to come up with this. We are very mindful of the burden this is going to have on taxpayers. We know this is a lot of money. So we really tried not to go above that figure as much as we could. We also know that right now the $400,000 we can budget cut. We can make some more cuts to try to get those a little bit more to even. And then we also know that if need be, we can add on. We can utilize the general fund money if we go over budget, which we've done this year as well. So where will the levy money go? And again, it's the two big things here. So we're looking at fully funding classroom aides. Right now with our budget, we're figuring about 6.5 aides to do what we need to do and provide the services we need to provide to our students here. So this levy amount would fund the full and part-time aide salaries and benefits. It would fund pre-K and full-day kindergarten, which are additional costs to the school district, and full-time aides and special ed, which is where we see our highest need for some of our aides. In the extracurricular program, we're seeking to just offset the costs. It won't fully fund extracurricular programs, what we budget for our extracurricular programs. We're just looking to offset those costs a little bit with this levy. So that would help with extracurricular stipends, how we pay our coaches, equipment and uniforms, state travel, which is a major thing we budget for every year, and then just athletic services and insurance that we also pay for. So that would just offset this. What will it cost the taxpayer? So this is the $1 million question. Estimated average annual cost per $100,000 of tax assessed property value is $50.52. So if you have a property of say $500,000, you would pay about $256 a year. And if you average that out, that's about $21 a month. And you can see the breakdown in smaller numbers here as well. $200,000 for a piece of property, you'd be paying about $8.42 per month. Please note, actual bills and taxes will vary based on your property values. So these are just ballpark, but the $50.52 per 100,000. Okay, so this is kind of the weirdness of all of this and the thing that is the least understood. So is there any chance of reducing the taxpayer burden? Yes. Okay, so if you have paid attention to your tax bill in the last 2 years, so we have passed a tax bill or levy in the last 2 years of $130,000. If you've paid attention to your tax, where your taxes went, you'll see CSD 13 and $0. That is because the legislature has passed bills, the property tax relief and the school district facilities fund bills that offset those bonds and levies. So these bills provide funding to pay off existing bonds and levies and provide additional money for districts for maintenance and buildings. Okay, so in 2024, the school district received $147,000 from this bill, which offset the $130,000 levy, so we didn't actually tax our taxpayers. In this last school year, we received $234,000. So again, offsetting the $130,000, so you didn't actually get levied. Okay. One kind of caveat with that: if there is no levy or bond in place, we can only use the money for maintenance. So we can only use it for a specific purpose. So If we do not have a bond or a levy in place, we cannot hire aides with it. We cannot do the things we're looking to do. Okay, long-term benefits of a levy. So this levy has been in place since 2014. It was for aides to be able to hire additional classroom aides, and will need to continue. Another long-term benefit is going to be improved special ed and title services. We're going to receive more help for our highest need students. That's where this is primarily targeted towards. Like I said earlier, full-time aides versus part-time aides. We're seeking to have longevity with our aides and to have consistency with them. And then some of the district-wide change in response to community needs. So kind of in this realm here, some of these additional costs have come in the form of some additional services we have been trying to provide our people. I don't know if you guys have been on the new website, but we've purchased a new website so we can communicate better. We're trying to do a few things like that, which is also needs money. We need to be able to provide money for that, for those services. Who benefits from the levy? So really the whole community does. So with the levy, we'll be able to, it allows us to offer some decent paying jobs to some hardworking folks that do a lot of really good work in our school district. Students will receive much needed services, and the financial burden of the sports programs will benefit all students. There's some further information on this. I would like to kind of point out one in here. This is an Idaho Ed News article that showed from the most recent November election, the bonds and levies that were passed. And I just kind of want to point out a few of these because it's kind of interesting when you get into the supplemental levies, like Basin School District, which is Idaho City, which passed a $1.1 million two-year levy.
Brian, make sure that you say exactly that because we can't see it up here.
Oh, okay, yeah, so you can't see that?
No.
Okay. Yeah, they passed a $1.1 million levy. Clearwater Valley, just north of us, passed an $800,000 levy, one-year levy. It was Garden Valley passed a $1 million. So I kind of point this out a little bit because $250,000 is an exorbitant amount of money, but it really actually kind of pales in comparison to what a lot of other similar sized school districts are asking for from their constituents. We have some additional information from the State Department of Education concerning the tax levies, how we figure those $50.52. You can check out our budget, which is on our school website, and then there's some additional information from the Adams County Treasurer here. And that's pretty much it. So thank you for your time. And at this point, I'll open it up if you have any questions. Yes?
So how much money on each of those groups is, what kind of money is allocated for each one of those? Because I want to see actually
This?
where, yes, that one. I want to see like where it's actually, out of 400,000, that's a lot of money. I want to see where my money is actually being put. So, and just, I know I trust, but I want to see.
Well, okay, so primarily this. So if we fund this at the full, there's a lot of variable with everything because we're in early stages of budgeting. So there's a lot of variables with this. But if you look at the 6.5, where we're kind of figuring this, if we figure 6.5 aides, classroom aides, if you pay 6 of them full-time and a half, that would equal about a little over $200,000.
About
Cost.
$230,000.
Yeah, when you pay salary plus benefits and all the things. So it would the cost to the school district. So we just kind of put about $200,000 in this category, and an additional $50,000 towards extracurricular. But there's 1,000 variables with that. So, you know, you don't have to hire all 6 full-time. There's a lot of variables, but that's kind of where we're figuring. It's about $200,000 here with the additional 50 going towards extracurriculars.
One full-time aide for salary and benefits, average is about $40,000.
Can you tell us what the current levy tax rate is, so we would know the difference between what we have agreed to pay currently and what we would be paying if we approved this levy?
Thank you, Chloe.
Sorry.
It's $23.
Okay.
What's that?
It's $23. The
Okay.
current levy is $130,000, and it's $23 per 100,000.
Per 100,000, yeah. So the higher the number, the more that number goes up per 100,000. Yes.
I think we should also just clarify that it's off of your house's assessed tax value, right?
Your
Not-
taxable.
Your taxable house value, like
Yeah.
with your homeowner's exemption and everything, right? Like it's not,
Not your,
Not real
your
estate
assessed
property
value.
value.
right, it's not your property value, so our $500,000 estimate is
High.
high,
That'd be a very nice property.
yeah.
And I would like to point out that a lot of this is confusing. A lot of it's hard to give a specific, we've worked on, you know, what kinds of questions, you know, we might expect, and a lot of it's really hard to give a specific answer for, especially the tax stuff. And we did invite the county treasurer and the county clerk, who both play a part in levying taxpayers, and also some commissioners, and they chose not to come. So I think that's something else you should keep in mind when you're.
Sherry did call me and say,
Okay.
you've got this, right? You should. But yeah,
Ryan, what happens if the levy doesn't pass and we're $400,000, $500,000 in the hole already?
So yeah, I don't want to think anybody to think that we're going to just start cutting sports or doing anything like that. We can absorb some of the expense if we don't pass this thing. It's just a matter of. So what's always on my mind when we're talking about the budget, we are sitting on a surplus right now, but that's kind of an anomaly. We're kind of on the backside of COVID. I just actually looked at this with Mindy today, just the amount of money from ESSER funds, which was the COVID money that we were getting for several years, that allowed us to do all sorts of things. That is, we, like most school districts, are running with some surpluses right now, and that's because of that factor. If you go pre-COVID, we were rolling into every school year at $0, which I do not want to go back to. If I can avoid it at all costs, I do not. That's not how you should run your households, and is not how you should run your school district. So I'm trying very hard with this levy to just not dip into that fund as much as I can. If we don't pass it, we would probably just start chunking into it and probably run it again in November to try to offset that.
Have you looked into, sorry, I'm just not.
You're starting, I'll get to it.
Have you looked into other districts that don't and have not done levies that are our same size, that are able to maintain budget and stuff, and see how they
Something
have
like-
dispersed their money appropriately? Or not saying you're not doing it appropriately, but have you looked into that?
Something like 80, I'm pretty sure it's like 80% of school districts in Idaho run levies.
86.
86. There's almost no school districts that don't run levies.
Well, I was wondering if it doesn't pass, that's what I'm saying, have you looked into that to see where
I mean,
there might become some.
80% of our,
there.
like something like 80% of our budget right now is personnel. So that kind of tells you where we're going to save that money. It's going to come at the expense of personnel. Because there's only so much you can cut out of printers or, services and that kind of stuff to absorb, $250,000.
Also, I think that the community should understand too that Governor Little he says that over 50% of the state budget goes to education. And he was mostly talking about K through 12, but in some higher education also. But when last year, they decided that they were going to cut a lot of taxes. And so, and even though it might have not been directly towards schools, it is towards schools, because it's indirectly, it affects our bottom line. And so, I think that's something to keep in mind also, over 50%. So if you look up on Google and see how many states pay over 50% of their state budget to education, there will be free. Most states don't do that, but Idaho, because we only have 1.8 million people here, we spend about 51% of our state budget on education. Critchfield, then Critchfield, was going to ask for $50 million for schools this last year, before the legislative session, because our what Title I, not special education. Because special education is not funded. We have requirements, but they're not all funded. And so she wanted to make sure that especially these rural districts, that we had some money to be able to invest in our kids, especially for the special education, because she knows that we don't get enough money from it. And so, but she had to backtrack on that because they actually asked her to do a analysis for a 3%, if they were going to, because Governor Little said he wasn't going to cut education, right? And then he said, and then the legislature said, hey, David Critchfield, Department of Education, we want you to give us a report if we were to take 2% away from you guys. How about 3% away from you guys? And she got up and she told them no. She told them to go pack sand. She's like, you're not taking any money. I will withdraw my $50 million, but you're not taking any money away from the schools. But because our taxes got cut, also the money that goes to schools got cut, if that makes sense.
And to piggyback on what Dan said, there also, the state normally gives us a little bit more just for extra expenditures, which we always have. And even though they're not cutting us this year with our state funded programs, we're not getting that little boost. So we're staying at, hopefully staying at the same level that we have been. We're not getting a little bit extra for our extra cost of everything. Everything costs more.
Unless the legislation has changed in the last couple of weeks, but from my knowledge, next year, each school district's getting 1% of their normal from the state, and they're projected the following year to have another 4% cut from the state in all school districts. This was a couple of weeks ago in legislation. And so what, have we looked into that? Because like this, clearly I know how much more, like 1%, like in the district that I work at, that's one full-time aide. And so that's going to cut into that. And then if the next year it's 4%, like you're looking at almost $200,000. So like if you start looking at it, like there has to, I guess I'm not quite sure what I'm saying, but is this just putting a Band-Aid on something we need to look further on? Like maybe it's a good Band-Aid for right now, but we need to look at it because I don't foresee, I know with all the legislation that's gone on, that the public education system, I work in the public education system, I know it, is not working good. And I understand that, but I want to make sure that we're fixing things to make our public education better. Like, what are we doing to get more students here so we get more funding? What are we doing for like the special ed to make sure that we're only qualifying students that actually need special ed, and that kind of stuff. So like I understand that, but we need to make sure we're fixing a bigger problem. To me, a bigger problem also, and this is okay, but what is our recourse to make sure that we're not in this bind every single time?
Is this an ongoing thing?
Yeah, I know. Like I'm aware. I've been in education since 2009. I know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Of those aides, we currently have 3 full-times and 1 part-time that are required one-on-one, but they give us no extra funding for that. So
The 6.5 that we're looking at, 3.5 are already spoken for. And then another half is the pre-K. So, I mean, and those are things we can't not.
Well, have we saved money? Because I know when we're talking special ed, I know my husband was a special ed teacher, the sole one with 52 students for an entire year. And I know in most districts at that rate, you can have at least 3 special ed teachers. So have we been trying to save that money? I know we've had to have aides to combat that, but like aides don't cost as much money as a certified teacher. So like it makes me wonder, like, where is that extra money?
You don't get that money unless you have the teacher.
Why don't you get 3 to 5%? Most specialists, the federal government gets 3 to 5% of the money to the district, depending upon your student body. So it's not necessarily the person, it's the student body.
Yeah, our special ed fund, we can fund 1 teacher. No aides, 1 teacher.
I'm just bizarre, because we have 2 and we have 20 students.
Yeah.
And
You can look at the numbers.
So it just kind of makes it bizarre in my mind. That,
Yeah.
and there's everyone's staff. So I'm just trying to make sense out of this, I guess you can say.
What's the
I'm in.
Unless they got some secret formula, how they get more money from the state than we are, I don't know.
I don't, as far as I know, they don't have that.
Well,
I can double check that, I can double check that.
okay, so part of that is we get special ed money. That money covers 1 teacher. Out of our general fund, we have to do maintenance of effort and match that. So we can pay another one out of general fund. So that's probably how your school has to. If you look at their IDEA, which is special ed, they probably don't get funded for both of those teachers. Is what it is.
And I can speak to special ed because I'm the special ed director. One thing that I just thought of that I was reminding Brian of is in our district, because we're a rural school district, we have a very difficult time attracting teachers for special education. We are still required by federal and state law to provide those teachers. This year we lost a teacher mid-year and we put out the ad and we had no one that applied. No one, 0 people applied for that job. We were still required to provide a teacher. So what did we have to do? We have to hire an outside agency to provide that teacher at about triple the cost, if I remember correctly, for that teacher. We have to do that because it's a state and federal mandate. We do not have a choice. Also, our support services, things like speech services, occupational therapy, school psychologists, we have no human beings physically here that provide those services. They are all provided virtually at about 3 times the cost they would be if we had a physical human being here providing that service. So those extra costs are costs that bigger districts do not incur because they have applicants and they have physical human beings providing those services. And we have no choice in it. And we work with a great vendor. We're very blessed to have the vendor that we have. She provides some great folks for us, but there's a cost to that. We've also had a lot of state corrective action plans in special ed over the last few years. We've been working diligently to get rid of those. Those corrective action plans cost us money because we can get fined, we get sent to trainings, they're very expensive. We have gotten to a point now where we have virtually eliminated those. I think they'll be completely eliminated by the end of this year because we've had to put in these extra services, we've had to hire extra folks so that we can stay out of trouble with the state when it comes to providing special ed services because they are mandated. As I said, we do not have a choice. So our special ed department has been cleaned up majorly over this year, but there, as Brian and I talked about, there is a cost to that, unfortunately. And we incur that cost to make that happen. So it becomes one of those things where we say, well, do we not provide the service and violate federal law, or do we pay more money and follow the law? And I'm always going to be on the side of following the law.
So
Go ahead, Becca.
Question just to speak back on that.
Sure.
Because I already knew we have under 20 that students and stuff, I didn't know that. Are we able to use their EUID number and get reimbursed for part of that expense?
I am not sure.
For part of
Because you said we don't get reimbursed unless they are a teacher, but if really be especially like they have to be certified, so can we like put in them that we're getting, we're paying them fairly to do services, can we get reimbursed?
Like for a resource teacher or something?
Yeah, so like for
Well,
things like.
They're contracted though.
And just to give you an idea, our current resource teacher for elementary is costing us about $10,000 a month. That's way more than you all know that a teacher makes. That's because we have to go through this contracted service who keeps most of the money, quite frankly. The teacher doesn't get anywhere near that.
So yes, we would love to do that, but where it's a contract.
Like I'm saying, trying to find other possibilities.
No, I just want to answer your question, yeah.
Well, in that case, the state will only reimburses for the cost of the teacher. So where they're charging 3 times what a typical teacher would cost, we only get reimbursed for an in-person teacher.
But if we're getting at least the teacher part, that's at least not costing 100% of that.
I would think that that company would get that.
I just want to,
Right.
anyways, that's a different discussion you guys can have with finance. but-
And to speak to your question about our numbers in special ed, I've actually developed a system, along with Brian and along with your husband Lee, to make sure that we're evaluating kids properly. Before I got here, we were not evaluating kids properly, and we were just putting kids in special ed. You have to have an entire evaluation process to do that by federal law. We've created that process, and in doing that, we have lowered the number of kids that we are recommending for special ed because they don't need it. We're providing services through Title, through 504 plans, through other means. Whereas before, we didn't have any process, so we were saying, oh, the kid needs help, just make them sped, and that's actually against federal law. And so we're no longer doing that, is what I'm saying. So that is decreasing the cost, absolutely, because now we have an actual system to make sure kids need special ed when they get to that point and they get it.
Mark, you had your hand up a second ago.
You mentioned that our levies were not, the courthouse wasn't charging us for the levy because you had other state money that was offsetting it, so it was a net zero. Is that money not continuing?
I believe it will. There's a bill in the legislature right now. There's a bill in the legislature right now. I'm sure it'll pass.
But it won't be as
but
much as what it has been.
It won't be anywhere near what we had, where to go? It won't be anywhere near that, the 234,000. What we don't know, we talked to somebody from the state. They had like a huge ballpark range of what it'll be. I'm assuming it'll be more like this 2024 number, 100 and some thousand, but it could be as low as 80,000. We don't know. And we won't know until August.
So on that slide you said if the bond is not in place, if we don't pass this bond, then that money will only be able to be used for building maintenance.
Yes.
Does that mean that we will not have aids, or you said you
It would mean
offset
that
it
we,
with
yeah,
other
we would,
general
I
fund?
mean, yeah, it would mean that we can't use this money for AIDS, yes. But it's all the shell game. I mean, so then you
Yeah.
could use that money
Move
to
the
pay
money to
Royce and do that stuff, and you could shift things around, so. I think there was a question over here too.
Yeah, how many students are we talking about here? I mean,
District-wide,
altogether,
we're about 270.
how many you got in high school?
In the high school, 9 through 12, we're at about 60.
About 50,
60.
60? Okay. I just, it's an awful lot of money for, I mean, I know it costs so much if you got one or 1,000, but,
Right.
yeah, okay.
Does the state still pay per student?
It pays ADA, yes.
So
By
why
attendance.
why do we still have kids dropping out so much in homeschooling? Maybe that's a problem we need to figure out. So
Well-
the school district can have kids come back.
I agree, 100%. Yeah, we would love
Because then the
that.
state gives more money to schools. So if we've got students dropping out, there's a problem.
You're right.
So maybe we need to fix the problem in the school system before we start asking for more money.
Yeah, well, yeah, we are trying to address that. We're talking about that. We went to the PBIS system to try to improve our culture and try to make this a more positive place, which it really is. If you talk to anybody who's working in the school district, it is, but we're in stage one of this. I'm talking to these kids when they're leaving, by and large, especially in the high school at that level. I'm talking to these kids and asking them why. The biggest response I'm getting is they want to go work. They can't work and go to school and do all the sports. So we're trying very hard to start an apprenticeship program so we can actually hire these kids in our school district and keep them working right here. We're trying, but I'm very open to ideas if people have ideas how we can do it. It's definitely a huge conversation we're having. Yes.
Conversation for later, but there's a lot of state initiatives with the senior project is going away, and it's the College and Career Readiness Project. And that goal is to get kids off into apprenticeships and work. And I know in our district, starting next year, almost all of our juniors and seniors will not be at our district. They will be working in college and in apprenticeships. So, and building a schedule that works, and they're still considered our students,
comes at other costs, but yeah, I mean, that pushes kids out of our, you know, shop programs and those things. What's that?
You still get to count 'em, and-
Well, I know you still get to count them, but they're not bodies.
They're not in our electives.
They're not in our electives.
Not taking their, and that doesn't.
And when you're a small school, that's a big
They
deal.
are, if you look at the, you have to look at the system, and they're still.
I would love to have a conversation.
Where are they working?
What's that?
Where are they working?
Where are they working? Shies?
Thanks.
We have a lot of kids working that have gone online. I know right now Brundage was a big, hired a pile of them.
The coffee shop, the
Coffee shop, yeah.
MW.
I saw a hand up over here.
Isn't there a $5,000 incentive for parents that homeschoolers here?
There's a, well, that's the voucher program. Yeah, it's a tax break.
Yeah. Maybe that's the problem.
Well,
That-
it is.
It doesn't help.
The state.
So would sports be something that would keep kids in school?
Baseball would.
I'm just wondering, because you have so many that are out, but do they have to pay anything extra if they're going to play sports? Because they don't count schools are numbers.
They do not.
But they still pay.
I know, but should they have to pay extra then because?
We're going down that line, yeah, because it does hurt us, because when we have a kid that we receive no ADA on, they play football, we're still buying them pads, we're still buying them helmets, we're still buying them all the stuff.
I just remember when I went to school here, the kids, some of them, you know, they were like, well, we can do logging, we can do whatever, but we're staying here, so we're playing football, basketball, whatever. And it kind of was a carrot. So.
I know a lot of people who graduate because of sports.
The problem is that you're not competing with online when you were in school. The problem is right now, is that the public schools are competing with online schools. Because an online student can enroll from, quite frankly, anywhere in the United States. You can get on any school and be an online student. And then by law, if they want to play your sports, you cannot reject them by law either. So online is where the competition is the problem. The online, you've got to figure out how to compete with online. If you cannot figure out how to compete with online is going to take over our high school.
There's also
If you look at a lot of the
right now.
legislation that's going through the
Yeah.
State House right now, they're codifying this.
And they're trying to allow these students to not only participate in sports, but also in, prom
And all the stuff.
all of the extras that we offer.
These
at
are
our
bills in
house.
the legislature right now.
And I homeschool. I'm a homeschool parent. I was a public school teacher. I'm on the school board, and we chose to keep our kids home and homeschool this year for a variety of reasons. But that's why I'm here, because I want to talk about those problems, and I want to solve those problems. I want to solve the personal problems that I had, which is why I kept my son home, and I want to solve your problems too. So Dane, I'm really curious to hear what it sounded like you had a point. Like, what is the problem? What do you think we should be solving?
Well, my honest opinion,
Yeah.
we have teachers that don't care, or they just think that students can just sit there in a classroom that don't need to be in a classroom. They need to be out in the shop. They need to be learning how to use a bore gauge, micrometer, stuff that they're going to stay here and work from Mayhaws. They don't need to be doing this high-end math stuff or, any of that to make it in the council like that.
So I think
Born and raised here, graduated, I know all about it.
well, same here, me too.
Yeah, so.
So I think something we've talked about actually is creating like two different pathways, because we do have students who, I was born and raised, well, I wasn't born here, but I was raised in council, I was born in Boise. And I graduated from here. I had to go on to college to be able to come back as a teacher, which is not necessarily the case anymore, but I think there are two different kinds of students here, right? We do have students who want to go on to college, and we do have students who have no interest in that. My husband also graduated from here, had absolutely no interest in that, went to work for Mayhaws, right? He's the person that you're talking about. And I would like to have a district that can serve both of those populations, and so it's hard though, because we're so limited with our funding, right? I was the only English teacher. I can't teach, two whole entire, I can't teach everybody twice. I can't teach one 9th grade class and another 9th grade class at the same time because there's just not enough of me, there's not enough hours in the day. And so our funding, it always comes back to funding, and I hate to say that, I hate to keep asking our community for money, but without it, we can't offer any of these options that we would love to offer.
I just want to say, I think it's a circular argument. Without funding, you won't create an environment that's attractive to kids that make them want to stay. So if you cut funding, then you create an environment in which kids evacuate, go find other things to do. This is our future, these kids. I mean, I'm too old for them to pay into my Social Security, but some of you, but you want them to get the best that they can. And if there's no money there to hire quality teachers who do care about the kids, and there's no money there to address the special needs, even if they're not disability level special needs, but just attention deficit kids who need time to go run on the track before they settle into an English class. If there were a culture and funding for a school that created that kind of positive, I see you, I see what your needs are, and I want to address them, then there would be more retention. I think the kids that are falling through the cracks and would rather work are kids whose needs aren't being met. And we all know there are lots of kids who don't get any kind of support at home. Nobody's there encouraging them to think about their future. School is the place that helps them create a sense of what their future could be. And so I totally support funding school, and I'm an old woman on a fixed income, I've said this before, but this money is money well spent. It's way better spent than what I fritter away on Amazon.
I think there is one more issue that we face, is that we can't change up some of the graduation requirements because that's a state level requirement. So it would be nice, some kids maybe don't need all of those math classes, but because the state requires that, they have to take it. Some kids maybe would not want to sit in an English class all 4 years, but the state requires it. So in some ways we're handicapped in that regard because it's out of our control in what they have to do.
Well, actually, I mean specifically about the math, this school district used to require 4 years. Right? And the school board looked at that and said, hey, the state requirement is 3. Why are we making these kids that maybe don't want to go on to higher education take that last class, because it's that last class that's super hard, right? So we removed that, right? That was before any of us that are currently on the board were here, but they removed it, right? Like we were trying to be responsive. We're trying to be responsive to those needs best we can.
I think we do need to be mindful that there are alternate ways for these kids to get some of their certifications. I mean, there's definitely math skills that are learned in hands-on stuff, right? There's definitely, like, right now I'm teaching a floral design class. I mean, there's art, there's humanities. So I think as a district, we can be open to the idea of maybe non-traditional ways of meeting those requirements, as long as, the curriculum is set at a high rigor to where we
create a trades type math.
Yeah, there is, I mean, that has happened. It's a CTE math type thing. Other states and districts are doing it. Those are the type of things I mean, where we need to be open to that, and that might be a way that these kids can stay in our district and still meet these requirements, as long as we keep the rigor up and they're not just getting a pass, right? You have to work closely with your science teachers, your math teachers, and make sure that rigor is not.
But if our discussion is funding, where do we get the funding for a teacher that teaches, like, I'm all for it. I think having a CTE fully funded education program would be spectacular if I'm married to a CTE teacher.
Well, that's part of
But at the end of the day,
funding
where
is.
do we get the money to pay a specialty teacher that just does that? Do we cut someone else's program? Do we cut a whole leg off the program?
Well, CTE is funded.
Well, yeah, but if we only have a handful of teachers to teach these things, and we can't get other bodies there to teach these things, who teaches it and who's paying for it? Do you drop the greenhouse and you only teach those core classes in a CTE realm? Does Tyler do that? Does Jody do that? Is there anyone there?
A lot of districts are doing a Orange Shop 2 fulfills a certain credit, right? Like, that's a district, to my knowledge, a lot of that is a district decision. So there's a lot of things to look at with that, but that's.
You gotta remember, just to clarify for a few things, but like when we're talking about math teachers, like you actually can't issue a math credit unless they're math endorsed. They can't just be a CTE teacher. It could be a CTE type taught class, but it has to be by a certified math teacher, same with the science or something like that. It has to be certified specific teacher. Just clarifying that.
But circling back to what I said though is, knowing this, Ramona can't drop some of her classes to fill a CTE math position, and then we'd have to bring in a different body to teach those. That's where the issue lies in.
It kind of goes back to what Sally was saying, it's circular. It's like, yes, we would love to be able to help every student, but I'm one science teacher, and I can only do so much. I have 100 students every day, and it's a lot. And I try to do the best we all try to do the best we can with the resources that we have. And having the best thing that we can do is have aides that can help us, because even if your child is not a special ed student, having a classroom aide helps us to help everybody, and it helps with the management. It helps if your student is gifted, then I can help enrich their education, and it helps kids that are struggling and that are not on special ed, because then I have more time to help them. And so I think that spending our money on extra well-trained people in the classroom is one of the best things we can do to help everybody in the school, more than like just throwing money into different, fun programs and things like that. It's like that will help build our education system and help everybody.
So then what do you do with teachers that are well trained and aren't doing their jobs? Can we fire them? Can you fire them? Or do they just get strung along paying a salary that isn't helping the children?
That's very tough in the area that we live in. I mean, if you look at our current staff, a lot of them are not certified traditionally as teachers, and like
I'm not talking about certified teachers.
Well, but I'm just saying, as Mr. Fontana was saying, it's very hard to attract people to these positions, especially because it's not super well paid and it's pretty thankless. You take a lot of heat from the community because you're dealing with their most precious, not possession, but their most precious thing in their life, which is their kids, right? And so it's tough. It's tough to fill that. It's tough to attract people who will do a good job at it, and it's a tough job to do a good job at.
It's tough to get people to move here, honestly.
I do hear you, Dave, because I said I do hear you and I feel for you, because if you really think that someone is not doing a good job and should not be there, the last thing you want to hear is, well, we can't find anybody else,
right.
So we're keeping them.
Right.
So.
Well, at that point, you just blow your kid out, and here we are.
Right, exactly.
Losing money.
But I'd recommend you just go and have a private conversation with Brian. Like, that would be the best first step you could
Here's the
do.
thing is, you're asking for $400,000.
No, I'm talking about, if you have a concern about a teacher, talk to Brian.
But this money is not for teachers.
But there also isn't, so we've actually had this, as a board, we've had to, people that are retired but can't even afford to live here because there's no affordable housing. And he would have been a great guy to have him. But he came here, he looked at the place, brought his family out here, and he's like, I'd love to, I can't afford to live here. Because there's no affordable housing. And so that's also something that we're dealing with. And there's so many variables that we're dealing with. And so he was talking about being handicapped over in Wisconsin, about being handicapped with we have this graduation requirements and everything. We have a lot of requirements. We have a ton of requirements. And we don't have enough money to do it. And it's so frustrating. And we've been here since Dave was in 6th grade. So the last 3 years, he's in 8th grade now. And we've seen the culture go from kind of everybody was skittish, talk crap about the school, talk crap about, it was just kind of they were like, you're moving here to kind of a thing. And now, I don't know, we've kind of sunk our teeth into it, and I feel like the culture's getting better. I feel like kids are more trusting and more happy in school. I feel like there's some key people that are in both of the schools that are absolutely fantastic. I think it's getting better, but
There's always work to do.
yeah, it's super tough.
But really, we've lived in, this is our third school district, and I would say that we have, like, overall, like, in average, above average, like, wonderful staff. So I hope you that don't have students in the school are not getting the wrong impression. I worked in school for 3 years, and then I've been a volunteer for the last 3 years or so. And compared to all the school districts that we've lived in our family, we have amazing teachers here. They care. They're here extra hours. So if you have a problem with, like, if your child's it's not a good fit, talk to the teacher, talk to the administration. Unfortunately, I think a lot of families just pull their kids out and don't have that conversation. But really, like, in our experience, it's fantastic. You're getting, like, super small class sizes to one teacher, or with the aides, it's compared to, like, a middle school with 1,500 kids. There's no way that, you know, we have the infrastructure and the teachers to give a good education. Maybe parents need to just try and maybe step up or just have those conversations if it's not working. So,
One weakness with the small schools, if you have that teacher that your kid just doesn't, personality conflict, it's really hard to get away from them.
that is true.
And that's a benefit of a bigger school is that's harder in a small school. There's only one science teacher, there's only one English teacher or whatever, so that is a weakness.
What's our dropout rate?
Dropout rate? Variable, but as of the class of 2024, we're 100%. So we're normally pretty high graduation rate.
But it's not
Graduation.
It's not dropout.
Graduation rate, not dropout rate. 100% graduation rate. Sorry. She asked for dropout rate. Sorry.
People going online. I would say, although we graduated 100% last year,
Of who
that
were
class,
still in our
when they
class.
were freshmen, and I think there were 30 of them.
Yeah.
And we graduated 12,
Yeah.
10, 12, I mean, because they all, or a lot of them went online.
Say that again.
Our drug problem?
Our drug problem.
How bad is it?
So again, there's another thing that we're like anywhere else. There's a problem that's going to happen. The drugs are in every school, but
We
brought an SRO in, and it is drastically decreased. We've put more vape sensors up. We are reacting to this stuff. I would say our problems this year are significantly less.
Just to address the previous question, because you said we don't have any other options, so, the district I'm in right now, to combat kids from going online constantly, because there are those conflicts, and I know we have a policy in this district, but maybe it needs to be relooked at possibly, is they allow students, if there really is that conflict, to take IDLA, regardless if they have a teacher that accommodates. And now you might think everybody's gonna go on IDLA. No, you get 1 or 2 kids maybe per class that do. It's not that big, but it keeps the kids in district. And that is the goal ultimately, and generally it's only like one teacher. You'll see like just in an English class, or this kid might be just math, this kid might be just science. But it keeps them in district and that helps the funding also. So maybe that needs to be something that needs to be looked at.
He can't do it. There's your IDLA, it's like,
Yeah, we do.
not going to be.
I just legislature and I do know that's, yeah, I already know that's all. But I think there's gonna be some enforcement of that. But
I'd be shocked if they got rid of IDLA. I hope.
it's gonna be cut for sure.
It's going to be cut. That's already happened.
Yeah, but I think we will be okay as well.
I like like Jerusha, Becca, Dane, I think they're all saying the same thing, like we need to adjust our model so that we're more competitive with online, so that we're more personalized for the kids in our area. And I appreciate that long-term view because I think that's super, super valuable to us. I just don't know how to get there. If you could give us like a plan for how to do it, I would
Well,
love that.
and I think we are moving the needle. In the last few years, we've been moving the needle, but it does take time. Yes.
Friday, you have 2 months to make it more appealing to the taxpayers. You can't just say red and black, I'm gonna spend this much on this and this much on that. Narrow it down to how many aides you want to get. That money will go to these aides.
6.5.
I beg your pardon?
6.5. That's what we're budgeting.
But it doesn't say that, it just says you know what I'm saying? It might be better for me to see.
It did say that, and then we decided to take actual numbers out.
But we can put them back.
And you can't just ask for unlimited amount of money for academic or for sports. Just
If we do the 6.5, as what we're figuring, it's over $200,000 to hire those classroom aides, the full-time classroom aides. So $200,000 and then the additional 50% to just offset, because we get no extra funding for extracurriculars, just like every other school district. When we have sports programs, we add sports programs, all that stuff, that comes at a cost to our general fund. There's no additional money. Like another thing, busing, when we run buses for kids for school, in the mornings we get reimbursed by the state. We get no reimbursement for traveling to Pocatello for a football game. So these things are all hits to our general fund, and that's what we're trying to just offset as much as possible.
And the better our teams do, the more it costs us.
Yeah, successful teams are very expensive teams.
Yeah.
So what about the boosters? You go in the gymnasium or out here and you see all these boosters, these companies that are giving money to the school. Are they not?
They do, yes.
Well, they give money to the athletic advisory.
Yeah, that goes to student body accounts, that doesn't
So
go
these
to our
are
general.
district,
Not for general.
these things right here, these are district budget items, like paying coaches and buying equipment. We have a uniform rotation list every year. State travel, we have to, hotels, the travel, meals, all that stuff. You send a football team to a couple of weeks going to somewhere in the state of Idaho, that's thousands of dollars, many thousands of dollars. And then we have some additional certain like service fees, Dragonfly, and those types of things, and then our insurance. These are district things. Those booster club things, they buy additional things. And, individual sport teams will go out and, like the football team a few years ago was splitting wood and selling cords of wood and stuff like that. That buys the, if they want a cool warm-up jersey or if they want a cool something for their team, that's what that money is used for. And then the Athletic Advisory Committee has been instrumental in buying us a lot of equipment that we as a district can't afford.
You can also cut down on the travel.
What's that?
You can also cut down on the travel. Maybe the next couple of years, put it only league games. That cuts down quite a bit.
I'll send some coaches your way.
Send them my way.
That is a thought, but it's really, really difficult in the age of max preps and the word I'm losing, where we get our rankings. When we have good teams, you want to give those kids the best possible chance you can get. And that comes with some travel.
In order to go to state anymore, you have to have a winning record against hard competition.
All you have to do is win your league and go through the tournaments.
That's not how it works anymore. They've changed it.
It's all changed.
They wrecked the system. You now have to play again. They rate your strength of schedule. It's like college or professional sports. Yeah.
I don't know. I'll go with Ben.
My question is, do we just keep passing levies in the item to fund these, or are they ever going to get figured out how to be budgeted into the budget?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Can I point on that? So if you look, like Jim brought up a great point. Idaho spends like 50% of its money on education, and you're like, yeah, we're doing great. Well, just Google search real quick where Idaho stands. We're dead last for how much money we give per student. Dead last.
Just as a reference, we give $9,000 a student, or the state, per student. Oregon gives 23, California gives about 27,000.
I'm just curious,
And so.
Maybe I'm not asking the right question.
No, and I'm getting there. And so most school districts in Idaho run their schools through levies. Because, and personally, I think that's fantastic. I don't want the state charging me more taxes. I want, as a local community, we decide how much money we're gonna spend on our kids. That's Idaho's model. Idaho's model is we decide. So, at that discrepancy, I think it's a regular operating cost, but they make us pass it every 2 years. I don't see.
So is your question
You
is,
don't
are they
have to,
gonna,
you just have to sell that to people.
is your question,
Right.
are they changing the funding model?
No, his
No.
My point is taxpayer, when, we gotta pass on a levy, we gotta pass on a levy, it makes me feel like, can you not manage the budget? But explain it, I do understand that, but when you're trying to sell this to people, you need to understand that you're not, it's not that you can't manage your budget, because that's how it feels for a lot of people in the community that's paying taxes.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we need to add that in our informational slide is where Idaho is and that Idaho funds their schools through local communities, right? Like the
You guys
community.
explaining it to me, I understand, but before I came in here, I just felt like, can you not figure out how to work this into your budget? Why do we keep passing this levy year after year after year?
Almost every school district in Idaho is way over budget on classified staff.
which is that's AIDS.
AIDS.
And,
Yeah.
and, you know, I went to school here before we had a levy in place and there were no AIDS, you know,
Right.
and so that's the trade-off.
We could go back and we just want to have AIDS and the
Which
kids.
we can't
Well,
even do
no,
now.
we really
because of
can't
the state.
because,
Well, I mean, we could get closer.
we could bump the.
We could get
numbers.
closer. We could go down to just the ones they require and the kids' education would suffer, right? Like,
I agree with you, I'm just saying, if you're gonna try and pass this and get people that are paying taxes to vote for it, you gotta
yes,
sell it.
we got to explain that better. I agree. Completely agree.
Did you have a question?
Is it not an option to raise the athletic fee for students who are not enrolled in our district? So we are not getting state
For
funds
online?
for them.
We've looked into it, and we need to look into it more.
Because if we're
It's,
hemorrhaging money for students that are not even walking through our doors to play sports. I'm sorry, I know that we're trying to keep kids involved in the community and give them somewhere to go, but not at the expense of the rest of our district.
it has been a big conversation in the boards.
I think it kind of depends on legislation that happens this year. I don't know if you're keeping an eye on that, but there are 3 different bills that are connected to allowing homeschool students or online, you know, students outside of the district to participate in various things. And some of them are saying, okay, they pay, you know, they buy a one-time $45 card and that gets them into everything. Some are saying it's more up to the district. So I think we kind of
We're gonna
can't
have to
do
see what
anything until we
legislation
see
does.
that.
They are working on codifying this stuff right now. And those are big lobbies, those online homeschool.
The general public is going to have a major problem with the extracurricular program part of this. I understand the importance of it, but when you hit some of the retired people in the community, they don't, and they will not see it, you know. So if there's other options, I'd sure look at those.
I was just gonna say, I know I've heard that we are overstaffed, like teacher-wise, certified staff. No, is there a chance if we didn't pass the levy that we would lose a teacher? Or are we not hiring?
Teachers are different because you get a certain allocation from the state and they can tell you how many number of teachers you can hire.
But if we don't get, like, if we have an X number of students,
You have to
and
worry
we're
more about,
underfunded,
as
are we
teachers,
gonna
you have to
cut
worry
it?
more about the loss of kids.
But would we cut a teacher
If we lose
if we don't pass the levy, or if we do pass the levy? Like, is that, because I
Depends on what our
heard that
FTE is.
from community members that they would be, if that's a possibility of us losing one of our, and it would be an elected teacher because we need English and math and science and history, would we lose a teacher?
It's a possibility that we will lose an FTE funding. We won't know until probably April.
Yeah.
Where we-
And is there a chance of using levy funds to keep a teacher rather than football funds?
Not.
I mean,
Not
that's
as it's
like,
written
if
right
I'm
now,
looking at that,
not as it's written.
I understand.
I would say, okay, we're getting new football helmets, but we're gonna
Cut an
fire
entire.
Tyler because he's our newest teacher.
Where are you forever?
Like, and that's something that people are gonna
I don't
ask,
think we're there yet.
if that's possible.
I don't think we're there.
So, maybe I know this and have something on the go, but, with the extracurricular program and the aids, is there a way to make two separate funds? One for the extracurricular, and one for the classroom aids? Something you guys can think about, because I don't know how that rolls, if you can actually do two or not, I don't know if you.
So I'm just hearing that there's a lot of angst here.
Because I feel like somebody, like, people are gonna say, I support this, but I don't this, and then they're not going to vote. So like,
very
that's
small
not saying
part.
maybe split, so you might get at least one or two possibly, but, so, because you're right.
If you look at that, the ed, and take this for what it's worth, if you look at the ed news thing, what most levies were passed for, it was salaries and athletics and extracurriculars. Because those are the classroom aids and the extracurriculars are the two least funded things in a school district. It is the two things that are the very least funded. Like, you have a football program at your own expense as a school district. You have a, whatever program at your expense. So most school districts throw in extracurricular because it is a huge draw on every budget in every school district. That's just the reality. Because there's nothing about having a football program is funded by the state. Or
I was just
picking
wondering
on
if it's
football.
possible. My other thing, and I'm gonna be a devil's advocate here for a second, is what Chloe stated, is that we didn't used to have aides and we didn't have levies. So, during that time, I was actually the school counselor here, and I remember test scores, and our test scores were super high when we didn't actually have those aides. And as I'm aware now, they're really low. Like I said, I'm being a devil's advocate right now, but it really makes me wonder, like, are we utilizing them to the best of our abilities, especially in the elementary, that's mainly where the reading was.
I think there's a lot bigger factors at play with low test scores than just aides. I mean, the fact that there's almost, since you were here to now, there's almost not a single face that you would recognize in these halls. And we've completely flip-flopped everything. The last 3 years of our school district have been extremely tumultuous. I'm the third superintendent in 3 years. That's ridiculous. That's not a recipe for success.
Council has always had a hard time with superintendents, always.
So, but I just want
Hey.
That's 100 years ago.
And it's not that I don't appreciate the aides, and I know we need to, like, supply, like, they need jobs and we need people to come to the community, but this is a question I've been asked by a lot of people, like, why are we funding them when we're not seeing the results from them?
I think-
But some of us are,
I-
but some of you are, okay.
I would say that-
When we look at the test score average, that's where, like, I'm just like, I'm being the devil's advocate that.
And I'm kids that are coming into my class not grade level. I am utilizing Mrs. Fontana, I'm utilizing, because she's amazing, I'm utilizing the kids that qualify for sped services. Then I have a title aide that works on things that I do not have time in class for because we do self-fluency. So, and I'm gonna say right now, between title services, sped service, 2 title aides, and I have 2 high school TAs that come in and still kind of do a little bit of cleaning that my title ones couldn't get to. We're making leaps and bounds in growth, but can I get them to grade level? No, I could not imagine how far they come behind the usually because on an average year, and this is a problem we are facing through the state right now, is working on having a grade level proficiency at every single grade. But we also have to be very realistic at the moment, that's not where we're at. And that's not a problem that's going to be fixed overnight, and we can what if all day long. But right now, we are working, we're going to our PDs, we have one this Friday, and like they're helping us to say, hey, these are the things you have to do to make sure you're being proficient. But here's the reality, we're not there yet. So when every single year I've gotten students, I'm lucky that I have a couple of outliers that are actually grade level. Most of mine fall a couple years behind. There's no way, and I track all my growth for my post progress and needing leaps and bounds. Owen can attest, they still don't come to his grade level, but man, do they make growth, and that would not be possible without all these additional resources that I have, that I'm fortunate enough to have included. But it is the success of Title SPED and Title AIDS. Like, I could not imagine not having AIDS. I realized that it didn't used to be a thing. That was also a different time. I would not be successful without them.
Well, to tie into that, the percentage of special needs, special ed, because my son is in special ed and he's not anywhere close to special needs, the percentage of that back then when we didn't need this levy to now is insane.
Great point.
Yeah.
I would also say, like, when I was in high school, or right after I graduated, they had a bunch of, there was aides here, and they were part-time, and it was like just a job for most of them. Now our aides are full-time, and most of them are education backgrounds or have been in aid long-term, and I think that makes a huge difference. That our aides are, they know how to teach kids how to read, they know how to target these skills, and that wasn't the case, I don't feel like anyways, when aids were first implemented.
And we are working the ever-living dog crap out of these aides. Like, they have every single second of every single day floating around, because here's the reality. Could I absolutely utilize a full-time aide all day in my classroom? I could, because there are so many things that I could focus on throughout the day just to help support. But we can't afford that, that's okay. So with these aides, it's like a beautiful little dance of you're here, okay, we're here. We're constantly just moving together. They are working so hard that they're not wasting any of their time, like they're busting it. So like, yeah, like
They're very well utilized now, and they're very well driven and more trained, and there's no drama, there's no, he just did this, and I don't get to, they're like a well-oiled machine. And I think that comes with administration, and it probably wasn't the same a couple of years back, so yes. And it was something I heard a long time, so I just threw it. And I was I think everyone seeing like special ed aids, so I know that's mandatory.
And that is something that as, so I'm relatively new on the board, even though I've got the most tenure, I'm almost at the 1 year mark. One of my very first meetings, they came in to train us and they said, hey, the #1 indicator of how successful your district will be is how long your super has been there. And I was like, oh, so having a new one every year isn't great? So as a board, we're trying to give the school district the support they can and do our best to help Brian and Leo want to stay around, right? So that we can build these programs, because as your teachers get confidence in their leaders, right, then we can build these programs out. But yeah, we had a rough patch for sure, right? And we're working to get through it.
Back to the aides too, I don't think very many people who have never taught don't realize that there's actually technically in a classroom of anywhere from 12 to 30 kids that you have 3 different types of kids. You have above average, average, and below average. And you're expecting that one teacher to excel the average kid, keep the average kid average, or try and bump them up. But then you're trying to figure out how to take the below average kid and get him at least to average. So typically, the most focus is on the below average kid, and the other bunch kind of sometimes get left out. That's where we need the aides. The aides have got to be able to help the teachers with the children that are not SPED, but are below average. And I think sometimes what happens is a lot of people just think, oh, I've got an Elijah here who can read by the time he's 5 years old. Why can't they teach 30 other kids to do the same thing? Well, because not every single kid is that way. Not every child is the same. Not every child learns the same. So these aides are incredibly important.
And consistent aids, I would add to that as well, is having the same person. So Robin knows that, like, oh yeah, I can take this, this person can take these kids and then they're going to know what to do. And that was the big push to the full-time aid thing, is to create consistency so that we can have that working relationship.
And something that Mr. Joyce has instituted this year is to make sure that our aides are proficient. He instituted testing, so we've had all the aides tested. They've all passed the test. They are all proficient. And so we're not hiring aides that don't have the skills to meet the needs of our kids. We're making sure that they have those skills. And that's something that Brian put into place.
I would make sure that this is like actually the community knows this, because I do know like we have 2 administrators, and I think you guys are doing a great job. And have made some quick changes here, but there's a lot of, everyone's been a lot of history the last couple of years, a lot of negativity, and I think they need to know this, because from us outside lookers, we're thinking it's going on the same way it's always been going on. We don't have test project for that kind of stuff, because that doesn't happen until, April, or, we don't generally get until May, of course, but, like, I think this needs to be going on, that the changes that have been made to make sure that our money is being utilized to the best that it's supposed to be, and they're not just going around with countries.
Which is why they had this tonight, but maybe even if you like make a, I would be uncomfortable, like an informational video about it and go viral. Go viral.
TikTok. Yeah, this will go viral.
Pretty sure everyone's fun.
Kyle.
Yes.
So, as I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't pay any more taxes than they're already paying, do you have a redundancy plan? Like, what are you gonna do if it doesn't go through?
Well, we talked about that a little earlier. We do have a little bit of fund balance that we can rely on, but I'm trying very, very hard not to just eat that up immediately.
It's COVID.
We talked
That
about
was
this.
one-time money.
It's kind of one-time money. It's not like, we did do a lot of things good. We weren't out there just blowing through all that money, but it's kind of one-time money. If you have been in this district for any amount of time, so I've been in here 15 years. I've lived through the tough times. I don't want to go back to those days. We talk about it all the time. When Mindy took this job, she bound her checking account, or the general fund account, had $3 in it.
Yeah, the first year.
$3. We don't want to go back there. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll make it, we'll muddle our way through. We do, thank God we do have that ability, but once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
We don't get it back.
So, on another note, I had a short conversation with Chloe and a couple other people, and there's other school districts in the state that do more with the Stamer class. So, we need to be extending our hand, trying to go and find out like what makes their school work, like go take a tour, go talk with other superintendents, other school boards we gotta remedy something, like there's gotta be some fat that can be trimmed somewhere. I mean, obviously I feel for all the teachers, like my kid is probably just as big as a problem as anybody else's, but there needs to be another way to trim the fat without maybe gaining 6.5 aides or losing any more than we have. Like there has to be a different answer besides just asking the public for more money year after year after year.
This isn't gaining any aides.
No, we'd actually be losing.
Yeah.
We're actually losing it from this year. This is
an additional aids. This is to cover what we already have.
Oh, I thought you said you're trying to add 6.
No.
This would actually be a reduction from this year's levels.
It would be a reduction.
Okay, so I mean, minus keeping the one you have, like, I understand it's going to be an issue for a big issue, obviously, according, for the teachers, but there has to be something else that works, maybe in place of aids, if it doesn't go through. I'm just, like, there's more solutions to the problems that exist.
And we've all passed.
Yeah.
That's just what it is.
I mean, they're even looking.
That's what I'm saying, is that we could reach out to other districts that have.
Well, I'm curious which other districts.
Well, like Ryan said, 81% of our
And something like 80, I think like, what'd you say, 89% of school districts in Idaho pass levies. And
86%.
by and large, most of these levies are for the exact same things as what we're asking.
And so as a
And
business
far
manager-
larger.
As a business manager, when I am doing the budget, I have, we call it the Highway 95 business managers, and it's all of the schools along Highway 95, so it's Parma, Kayette, Weezer. And we do bounce things off of each other all the time, because
We
we're
have
all
the same
kind of
thing in
the same-
the
and we find that we're all in the
superintendent
same boat a lot of the time.
And if the amount of money that this school district is asking for, we will still be one of the very bottom funded school districts.
Yep.
Right? Like, a lot of school districts are asking for 10 times. what
Yeah,
we're-
there's, so one of the links in
We
here.
don't feel bad about that. We're not a rich community, right? Like, we're trying to keep it as low as we can.
Yeah, I understand that.
One of the links in here, Kyle, is this Ed News. This was from November, this link, and we'll put this on the website so you guys can look at this. This is from the most recent November election. I'll just show it to you. So supplemental levies that just kind of giving you all the bonds and levies that passed or didn't pass. Look at supplemental levies. Basin School District right here, that's Idaho City, similar size school district to us, $1.1 million for 2 years. Clearwater Valley, which is just north of us, same size district, $800,000, over $800,000 levy, 1 year levy. Garden Valley, $1 million 2-year levy, and again, pay for staff salaries, benefits, along with extracurricular activities and transportation. Full day kindergarten, classroom support, special education. Should sound pretty familiar to what we just talked about. These are the same school districts as we are, and they're passing $1 million levies, not 200 or 500,000. So, I mean, and I put this on here very specifically because people need to see this. Well, I mean, it is a huge number. 500,000. I literally got like white in the face when we talked about it. I was like, oh boy, that's a big number. But then you look at, I mean, this is what every other school district, our size, these are what they're doing. It pales in comparison. Genesee, another school district, our size, $1.85 million 1 year. So $500,000 is nothing to sneeze at. It's a large amount of money. I'm not saying that. But I don't know what other school district I would go to see what they do that doesn't have a levy. I really don't.
Maybe I was misinformed, but there has to be more modern solutions than.
And there's lots of things you can do, like we can cut our pay, like our classified salaries back down, and and pay our people crappy. And I just don't want to do that.
No, I understand, because I understand people still have to make a living.
Yeah.
But there has to be.
It comes at the expense of people, it really
And I
does.
think there's a lot of value in taking care of your staff, because if you have a well-trained, efficient staff that you can trust to do a good job, I think that's more valuable than anything else, you know?
In a body, in a classroom.
And so if you are preventing your staff from being able to achieve those things, I think you're handicapping your entire district.
Yes.
So,
sorry.
No, say the cuts have to be made, how are those decisions to be made? Are they gonna be based on performance, are they gonna be based on tenure, what students have to say, how we decide?
If we have to make cuts, have you asked?
Yeah.
We'll jump across that bridge. I don't know.
That'll also be something that people are gonna wanna know, is are we gonna cut new teachers that are doing good, or are we gonna cut other teachers?
We're not going to, because we're going to pass this.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, say you lose the funding for a full-time teacher, like Val mentioned, where do those decisions come in? Anything boils down to aides. You know, is it gonna be an older aide that has been here for a couple of years, but isn't loving it anymore, and isn't really having that rapport with the kids, or is it gonna be the newest one that showed up?
There's
do have
policy, Alexis.
Yeah, we have a RIF policy.
There's policy that we would follow.
So we would have to establish that as a board.
You guys just did it your previous.
Yeah, we just
did
passed
it,
that.
yeah.
Robin, I'm curious why, do you have a theory about why so many students are coming to you below grade level?
I do, but I don't know who is
place.
Okay, I'm just trying to think like. I was gonna ask you that. Yeah, I just, probably not the best place, but I'm just still thinking long-term
I
solutions.
absolutely do, and yeah, I'm happy to have that conversation on here, I would absolutely, but yeah, it is a consistency, I know I haven't been here a very long time, but it is something I have yet to have a class come through for me that has been over 50% grade level when I get them. Consistently, I have, like I said, middle of the road, average couple years. So always have outliers, I always have a couple gifted on one end, and then usually I've got a couple others that are on the other end. So yeah, I do, I have some thoughts that I would be happy to share another time.
Okay.
I just, it speaks to me for the definitely the importance. I'm fortunate enough that we do finally have some consistency and some really good people in place. So I'm fortunate enough to see those gains. I also just know it's not enough.
It's gonna take time.
Do you think
It is.
It's gonna take time.
And I do think that we are making those gains.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I do think that every year it gets a little better, and I think with more of that consistency, consistent teachers, consistent admin, consistent aides, like, because let's get real, none of it's been consistent in the last 10 years my kids have been here. We have not had that. I do see that changing. I do see consistency and quality is all across the board. So I do continue to see better gains, even just within my own class. We're gaining farther and faster, so they are improving. It's just my wonderful 9 months with them is not enough for 3 grade levels, but we are definitely improving, and so yeah. But yeah, we do this.
Do you think that the SWIP plan is addressing some of your concerns?
I do. Not all of them. Do I think absolutely some of them? Yes, I'll be the first to admit. I was a little, I don't want to say concerned, I just had the unknown of what that was going to look like, kind of was going in my head. And then having the gal come in and hearing the things that she's saying and the tools that she's giving us, and the way she presents it, things that even veteran teachers like Amy Shonway had said, like, I had no idea she's been doing this for 25 years. So I am optimistic. The things that she says makes a lot of sense, and she does want to attack it as a district, not just as, primary, intermediate, secondary. So I think what she's bringing to the table is going to drastically help as long as it is being implemented with fidelity. Do I think it addresses everything? No. But do I think that it is going to help drastically? I really think for it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on time.
I just have a random question. Do you guys take the interim lifestyle?
Yes.
Yes.
We do.
And so I was just curious, like maybe you guys could use those numbers to see if there was increase from the previous year. To see.
Yeah.
So I was just, because that would be maybe a nice thing to show the community that we, yes, maybe it wasn't done in the past, but see, we are making these steps, we have these.
I mean, we're we're in the first baby steps, because we didn't even get the SWIP really going until January. So we're in the first few feet of this miles-long journey. So the data is not going to be just immediately there. It's not like I'm very extremely hopeful that we see a little bit of a bump in May, but I don't think we're going to see great gains. Now next year we should see some gains.
But that's why it was 3 years.
It's a 3-year process. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen by May.
Well, I get that. Just seeing it going up a little, and it would be.
We need to focus a lot on the growth. That's got to be the well. That's all we talk about is growth.
And making sure the culture.
And the culture.
This is important, guys. It's not just something you just have to get through in the next 2 hours and just.
And that's what's frustrating with that. Well, that's a whole different
And make sure it's like
conversation.
cohort, because make sure it's cohort and not just like, so like Mrs. Warner, she might have tested her eyesight 6th graders last year, and you're comparing last year's kiddos to her kiddos, like in reality, you'd be comparing last year's 5th graders to this year's 6th graders to see if they've been making this jump.
Right. Friday, we're gonna do a training on this specific, yeah, and looking at SECA scores and all that stuff. Okay, I was thinking we were gonna be done like 6:15, but look at you guys go.
No, this is a good conversation, I think.
It is, yeah, this is great.
Are we good?
Are we good? Okay,
Any last closing arguments?
yeah.
Oh, yes.
Questions and answers.
No, what?
So I would have
Thank you,
questions and
Brian.
answers.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Brian.
Grab a sandwich on your way out.